Parliament now, and National Democratic Congress, India, the Padubona, the NPP, the Bakumabi. Now, if it's a power, now could get this person, and which you know, I'm going to get it money. Now, I'm saying, Yako Yabudi, Sa, and Panagro, and those.
The idea didn't say we live in Fima, you lose about 1.1 billion. Now the VAT you gain almost 2 billion.
Welcome to the head office of the Movement for Change. This morning, our mission here is very simple. My name is Solomon Osu, I'm the Movement for Change. There have been a plethora of issues confronting the nation Ghana. All of you remember that the Movement for Change took active part in the last elections. So matters that has to deal with the economy of this country and the general governance structure of this country is very much dear to our hearts. And it is on this reason that we have decided to invite you here this morning to get to understand the position of the Movement for Change so that Ghanaians will know that indeed there is always alternatives to whatever is happening. Ghana here meeting all the leaders of the Movement for Change. At appropriate time we mention their names. Without going further, I will call upon the spokesperson of the Movement for Change, the lawyer Angrily, who will deliver our message. I would entreat all media houses and journalists gathered here to pay close attention to the thematic areas that you will be delving into so that the stories that will come out will focus on these areas. Without much ado, let's welcome lawyer Appiadankwa to take
So, let them take this opportunity to welcome all of you to. Oh, what's your question about? What's going on? Leading to invite. My name is Angrily. Appiadankwa, the spokesperson for the Movement for Change. Before I go on and deliver a message, I want to first of all introduce some of my colleagues. Indeed, our structure is after the statement, you will be having a Q&A session. And then our structure is to have various people who address or answer questions on the various different areas. So on my far left is my brother, Mahama. We're answering questions on corruption and governance. And then we have you'll be answering questions on Galamsey. We have Sudan which was our wife. We have our lead communicator, Mr. We have and then we have Manaya. He will be handling issues concerning the so without much ado, I'll go ahead and then deliver what we have. Ladies and gentlemen of the media fraternity, I would wish first on behalf of the leadership of the movement to express our profound gratitude to you for responding to our invitation to attend this press conference. As one of the leading political forces in our country, we consider it appropriate and indeed a moral responsibility to express our views on current and emerging issues dominating our political landscape. The movement has followed with keen interest developments in Ghana following the conclusion of the 2024 general elections and the subsequent installation of a new government led by the NDC. I would like to make the following observations. One, dynamics in Parliament. The unprecedented supermajority in Parliament gained by the NDC, without doubt, signaled the potential imbalance in nature of power of parliament. Very much different from the dynamics of the hand parliament under the 8th parliament of the 4th Republic. Be that as it may, the nature of hostilities and rancorous conduct that has so far characterized parliamentary proceedings, including but not limited to the vetting of political appointees, has been a source of concern for all those who have a genuine interest in safeguarding our democratic credentials. While it is expected that the minority in parliament, led by the NDP, will hold the majority by extension, the ruling government to account, which to a large extent they seem to be doing with some admiration. It is important that they do so without grandstanding and a disruptive posture. Democracy is not all about disagreement. It is essentially about agreeing to disagree. The majority, on the other hand, must exercise their superpower with discretion and demonstrate full commitment to the principles of accountability and transparency. On appointments to key positions in government and the public sector, the president must be commended for living up to his commitment to establish a new government. Reducing the number of ministerial appointments to a maximum of 60 is without doubt a significant policy shift and a potential game changer, particularly in terms of its signaling effect. The reduction in the number of ministries and consolidation of same must result in further cuts in public expenditure. In addition, the quality of appointments made so far, to a large extent, demonstrates a commitment to infuse new energy, dynamism, efficiency, and innovation in government business. The era of Team B seems to be over. Our hope, though, is for the new appointments not to be obsessed with the trappings and arrogance of power, which will consign them to the same fate as faced by some of their predecessors. It is also worth mentioning that a delicate balance of maintaining both regional and gender balance in appointments has to a large extent been achieved, albeit with room for further improvement. Furthermore, the speed with which the appointments have been made from a historical context is worthy of consideration. 3. Corruption. The canker of corruption is without doubt one of the significant challenges confronting our nation. All governments in our recent history as a nation have spoken with fervor about stamping out corruption. And yet, as a people, we have made very little progress in dealing substantively with the problem of corruption. It is against this background that we must evaluate the efforts by the current government in combating the scourge of corruption by first establishing the morality. This, coupled with the recent pronouncements and actions of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, may seem to be a new aggressive approach towards dealing with corruption. The cases currently being investigated by the OSP, including the ones affecting the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofuriatta, have been in the public domain for some time now. The move by the OSP will offer the said political appointees an opportunity to defend and acquit themselves using due process or face the full rigors of the law. The tendencies for the acts or omissions of selected officials to be used as a smear campaign against all politicians must be frowned upon. In spite of these early efforts by government and the OSP referred to above, aimed at dealing with corruption, one would caution that in order not to fall into the same pit as previous governments, which has led to a NATO paradigm in Ghana, on tackling corruption. NATO simply means no action, talk only. It is the considered opinion of the movement for change that a more comprehensive, robust, and institutionalized approach to dealing with corruption must be adopted. As indicated in the Great Transformational Plan (GT) of the Movement for Change, there are 6 practical policy measures that must be considered in tackling corruption. 1. Creation of an anti-corruption czar Caesar with full constitutional backing. Under the current system where the office of the special prosecutor is established by law, but lacks constitutional backing, political influence can hinder the anti-corruption efforts of the OSP. In this regard, the GTP proposes the establishment of an independent anti-corruption czar with prosecutorial powers protected under the Constitution and separate from the powers granted to the Attorney General by the Constitution. This office would therefore replace the current special prosecutor's establishment and be truly immune from political interference. As an independent constitutional body, such an office must be fully resourced, taking into consideration the amount of money that can be saved as a result of the work of the Anti-Corruption Czar. 2. A unified and strengthened Anti-Corruption Act. The GTP proposes the consolidation of all existing anti-corruption related legislation into one comprehensive enabling legal framework to deal with corruption, and that will define without ambiguity the nature, scope, and content of all corruption and corruption-related activities, and also ensure that very stringent and non-negotiable penalties are prescribed for political appointees and other political sector officials and civil servants who are cited and indicted for corruption. Currently, various bodies and institutions, by their instruments of establishment, lay claim to having legal powers to investigate cases of corruption. These include the OSP, Yoko, Girage, the Police Service, CID, and the National Security. Everybody's work is nobody's work. 3. Compulsory asset declaration and lifestyle audits. Political officials, and not just political appointees, will be required by law to undergo periodic thorough asset declarations with real-time lifestyle audits to track unexplained wealth. 4. Transparent procurement systems. The GTP proposes reforms in procurement laws to eliminate the incidence of collusion, political patronage, and cronyism, ensuring that contracts are awarded on merit and not based on political or other considerations. 5. Empowering citizens and civil society to be watchdogs against corruption. The GTP proposes the introduction of an anti-corruption citizen charter, legally mandating whistleblower protection and incentivizing citizens to report acts of corruption. It also proposes incentives and other forms of support to civil society organizations in enhancing advocacy against corruption. These measures would ensure that no government official or political appointee, regardless of their status, will be able to use the color of their office to manipulate the government machinery and political system for group gain, for personal gain. The fourth issue is constitutional reforms. The lack of progress in implementing constitutional reforms, which have been extensively debated by various sections of the Ghanaian society, is an indictment on all previous governments. It is refreshing to note that the President has very early on in his administration empaneled a committee of very distinguished personalities, many of them known for their passion and commitment to the reform process. And equally important are recognized for their professional integrity and independence of thought. It is our fervent hope that their recommendations will not be buried within the corridors of power. It is worth noting that the GTP of the movement contains a comprehensive set of proposals for constitutional reform, including but not limited to the establishment of a government of national unity and the establishment of a second chamber of parliament, all with a view to promoting a more inclusive and decentralized governance architecture. Now, fifth is the economy. The Minister for Finance has indicated that he proposes to present the 2025 budget statement and government's economic policy by the middle of March, whilst commending the Minister for his efforts to meet the constitutional requirements of representing the budget before the 31st of March. The movement would like, among other things, to advise as follows. 1. The ministry must undertake a complete overhaul of the architecture of the national budget, focusing first on ensuring macroeconomic stability, anchored on the 2 pillars of fiscal consolidation and tight monetary policy, working in consultation with the Bank of Ghana. 2. Prioritizing catalytic investment in the investment in the productive sectors of the economy, namely agriculture, industry, and tourism, as against investments in social services and infrastructure development. 3. Providing a cocktail of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives to leverage financing and investments from the private sector, particularly to support infrastructural development in roads, bridges, water delivery and sanitation services. This should include attracting private sector participation in the full gamut of the energy sector, from generation, transmission, and distribution. It is worth noting that these policy measures will require a review of the current Exemptions Act, which is an incentive to the attraction of private capital. 4. Negotiating with the independent power producers, IPPs, in the energy sector on a debt equity swap policy that will give them a stake in the private sector consortium that will partly own and manage the energy sector assets of government. 5. Abolishing some of the nuisance taxes, including the e-levy, vetting tax, COVID levy, and fumigation levy, to replace the shortfall in revenue that will be occasioned by the removal of the above-named taxes, and to optimize government revenue in general. The ministry should effect an increase in VAT from the current 15% to 17%, but separate the calculation of VAT from the NHIL and GEF fund in order to avoid compounding the calculation of the taxes and levies. The anticipated reduction in public expenditure arising from the reduction in the number of ministries and the number of ministers will contribute to closing the revenue gap. In addition, the aggressive efforts to reduce the incidence of corruption in public service will also save government additional revenue loss. 6. Retain the current 3% flat tax paid by MSMEs with a specified turnover and eliminate the additional 3% charge as distributors' margin. 7. An effective management of the country's natural resources. Again, the GTP has a comprehensive policy blueprint on this matter. It is time for action, ladies and gentlemen. I do hope that the issues raised in this press conference and the solutions proposed will go a long way to support government's resetting agenda. Ghana first. Ghana will definitely rise again. Thank you, and God bless you.
Parliament now, and National Democratic Congress, India Nipadubona, ne MPP nya, Nipakumabi on. Now, if it's a power number, could get this person, and you know, I'm going to get it money. Now, I'm saying, Yakoya Budi, Sa, and Panabrono, and Dosu. And the movement for change for FSF parliamentarians, FTSC, Omunyo Muma, the same penny for your mother, so Mokapoyam, minor. Accordingly, yesterday, be a quantity now. Anything. At also, movement for change, say, Yadoma Penny, your mamma, Sir, or Castle of a funny part in 60 as ministers are so far, no. Yeah, dead in the say, a deeper system will make me a fan. So I'm only 56. Sounds here, they say what they go crane, Mebun Abumwa, Muyegma. Yeah, catch your man penny, John Mahama, and in a palm for say, yes, you're the mamma, you catch them with a moon goodie. A moon press, Sikaya, the best Monsano manager for India, but the Yagma. Now, man, opera, Nama Umia, and 2 few men. Remember, 8 years school papa, or where, a 2 of food, a 2 for my son of Matron.
ho so enya so fa so women for change say adia eye chiwade kura ne keta hye kro no adokore na ye hu say OSP as office of the special prosecutor special prosecutor na kasa asha se tu anamon bia o pese odi huduma ya ne ensusue mu no se ne ye campaign ye ka kire mu amantie enso still enim se da achim beti ya de ase ye de ade bia friend corruptions a wono won show bia se otumi a hu secretary bi ebon ho a wotam ho a na wono adu asem fast ni so ma beni ye ko ye ni mu obere so sa so ahye OSP say enya ma e die wono mo a watu nsafra oro eye oro akerufuri ata no ene wo mo akeka ho nyina no omo mo de answer sansem ye be ye free because Ghana sike bi anyira na yentumi ni sa no action no talk ye kasanko anu hu ben say eye chiwade ebio constitutional reforms mo be kaya ya ka kire mo say ye mra bona ye didi duma no chima bi wo ho iti esa kayo mampeni ye nyina ya we say wati abegeku a wo so mo gowi na no urajo Professor Mills by TV we na $6.3 million for Angosiaga uraku for do buy on so be TV 3 million Ghana cedis Angosiaga en pray de ye mpese ye betese we nu maso aba no ekoye committee ya fa anya adwuma bia movement say ye pese ye hu so mu bia o mu dwuma die no ebetumi aboa ama constitutional reforms no ababe economy ne so no movement asosha bi o makama ye die futu no ema owura Mahama obekaya owini na in election no movement ye penny owura Kyeremanteng bo anan ekochia no okọ one consider position and one sereniska emobokojare the great transformational plan yeti of this great transformational plan okọ share ne say emu na nsem de no bebi a Ghana ye takela yemfa ye hu nko aye befunu bi ye wutia na no movement na kirem se sika ebeba ne sem no ofa nko hye bia bi ti se agriculture nyuma envididuma ene de keka ho na bema nnuane nyuma aye de aba na importer ana say nyoma dodo a ye krafiri amano ne de ba emma ye sidi no enya ahode no enso aye de atumi atwa movement is anso aka say ora kenofori atare na bank of fund ye bia de friend compound calculation of VAT mu a mo ye business de munim say ye di NHI esa akoka gross ho ni aka bo ma say ya be apply VAT no enu na e ma port go for kwantu mi enyi obon yoma e okuru a movement so man no ora Mahama no pam for yesra o muntwa sa de ni na be ya VAT na ye 15% mo ye nye 17% na ye nyim free NHI no e mo say de be ya nipa ho be de ebe anya na mo ye maintain sa 3% flat rate na ye de ediduma ne kra movement say Galamsey mo aye manim sem ye koto aba na no ade ba ko a e ma Ghana for to aba do na ma wura Mahama eye yensu aye se ye sase aye se no oboba ye hu se o tu wa na mo me ma no me ye se anofafa ye hwe na nim isan say ye no wan ko Galamsey a movement ye me gina na so aya ku na ama Ghana for e wa to I don't know where any I want to offer. I him say boko sana mbeka mo fa bi nka mo. You know the questions are free 84.
The will be 1%. Now ocean 1% no. So ocean revenue I 2023 that the data available. Is a levy MI just about 1.1 billion Ghana cedis. And I propose say Gabna e de beba no. Yenfa VAT in 315 and go 17. That's VAT in so 2023 my 14.4 billion. It's only 11 free. Now the VAT in the back. Ubenya additional revenue. Now, yes, yes, say so ocean one a month for which because it's one if you go more a regressive economics in the country. And I say the bar and one or minor and development because one ultimately say almost 2 hours a kakra bi. Then I'm saying VAT air consumption tax. You know, and yet they say who introduce levy before meeting me bypassing the payment. Secondly, so we move you can say some no a month for the GDA war, President this is a wash out put me this one. It's here the firm convention is said, my penny tier, they said, for the king of said, we live there free. But they are also come now, it me affiliate with the strategic review of the tax system and tax regime. The economists will be nuisance tax. You can't kind. And yet, you live in so be or her for the bar and more on minor productivity. So you feel not the way bar to say party bar, the general, and yet and also the incident that is in Kofa, the war almost because the one called baby, you give out and Kofa. And I said, look at you know, tear class, no mobile money, or yeah, no, but I won't go baby. Give that to our Cotadia now. I said, when you're in that in there, they have. Here they didn't say we live in Fima, you lose about 1.1 billion. Now the VAT you gain almost 2 billion. It's just all your own crowd being more revenue. And there are other things, you say, you beside actually more the revenue for any gain.